All right, so for this video, we're going to focus on fractions, decimals, and percents, guys. And these are really easy. All right, so I want to focus on, first of all, changing a fraction to a decimal. And you've done this, so you're familiar with it. So to change a fraction to a decimal, number one, you just need to TIBO. Set up a division problem. In other words, do top in and bottom out. And then after you set your division problem up, do top in and bottom out. Like, for instance, this is going in and that will go out. What you have to do is add a decimal and a zero behind the number that's in your dividend. That's the number in the house. So I'm going to add a decimal and a zero. Make sure you bring that decimal up. And then you just start the division process. That's how you change your fraction to a decimal. I'm just going to skip count by 8. If you have your multiplication chart, just start skip counting and just list the eights. 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 8 times 8, 64, 8 times 9, 72, 80, okay, 88. I'm just listing some from the chart, okay? And I start off with 8 into 7. Well, if I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things, I cannot make a group of 8. So put 0 there. If you put 0, we should know to subtract. And bring down. All right, how many groups of 8 can you get out of 70? Well, don't go to 72 because that's bigger than 70. So we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Excuse me, 8. I went too far, not 9. 8. Erase that, please. Thank you. So that's 8. And 8 times 8 is 64. That's the number I circled. So I'm going to subtract 64. I can't start off with 0 and take away 4. I'll borrow from the tens. Okay. 10 minus 4 is 6. I have a remainder of 6, but when you're changing something to a decimal, you don't put remainders. We already have a decimal, so we don't need to worry about adding a decimal again, but let's add a 0 so we can just keep going. How many groups of 8 can you get out of 60? Okay, well, let's go back. The closest I can get to 60 without going over is 56. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Subtract the 56. 10 minus 6 is 4. Well, still don't have a remainder of 0. Nothing is repeating on top of my house, on the roof. In my quotient, guys, that's what they call it. So just keep going. Add a 0 and bring it down. How many groups of 8 can I get out of 40? Well, exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And subtract the 40. Now I get a remainder of 0. So as a decimal, 7/8 is 875 thousandths. Okay, now if you want to focus on 2 and 7/8, like how do you change a mixed number to a decimal? It's so easy. This 2 is a whole number. It's a whole number. And whole numbers really actually sit in front of the decimal. They always sit in front of the decimal. So I know 2 will sit in front of the decimal. The only thing you have to do is figure out what 7/8 is as a decimal. And for that, you just TIBO 7/8. But I've already done it. I TIBO'd it right here. So 7/8 is 0.875. So whatever is behind the decimal here goes behind the decimal here, because 2 is the whole number sits in front of the decimal. Okay? If you have a whole number, you just write that whole number in front of the decimal. And then you TIBO only this piece, and that's what goes behind the decimal, okay? That's all you do. Let me give you another example. You can write this one down. Suppose we had 3 and 4/5, guys. 3 is a whole number. It's going to sit in front of the decimal. You're going to TIBO 4/5 only. So this is the part that will go in, and that's the part that will go out. Add a decimal and a 0. Bring that decimal up. And skip count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, and so forth. 5 won't go into 4 if you only have 4 things. You can't get a group of 5. But 5 will go into 40 exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. So whatever is behind the decimal here goes behind the decimal here. So 3 4/5 as a decimal is just 3.8. That's all you do. Keep this whole number and it goes in front of the decimal. Okay, it goes in front of the decimal. And the 4/5 is what goes behind the decimal when you change it to a decimal, when you T-board, okay? Hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, pause the video and tell me. I'll come over and show you again. All right? I'm going to erase that because I don't like everything all bunched up. All right, let's take a look at changing the decimal to a percent. And if you notice, I have the R in percent capitalized. That's because if you're going from a decimal to a percent, you move to the right 2 places. You slide your decimal to the right 2 places. So I always tell my students, if you're going to a percent, remember the R in percent as a way to help you to decide you're going to the right. Go to the right 2 places, slide that decimal, just add the percent sign. So here, all you do is take your decimal and slide it to the right 1, 2 places. So it's no longer here, it's right here. And you can drop that 0 right there, okay? You just need the 6, the 5, the decimal, and the 7, and then add your percent. You're done. That's all you do. Now, you got the number 3, and you don't see a decimal because it said things that slide the decimal. You don't see a decimal in 3. But where did I tell you a decimal is and a whole number if you don't see it? Remember I talked about the lunch line and how you all don't break in front of people? Decimals are pretty much the same. They don't break in front of numbers, so they go to the end. So your decimal is actually at the end. Now you can slide it to the right too. 1, 2. So your decimal is no longer right here. It's right here. But what are you going to put in these empty spaces? Just drop little zeros in them. Treat them like dropping an egg in an egg carton, okay? Empty egg spots in an egg carton. So this ends up being 300%. Don't forget to add your percent. If you want to keep that decimal back there, fine. But you don't have to. Excuse me. Okay. Now, let's look at changing percents to decimals. So if you're going 2 decimals from percents to decimals, I have the L capitalized in decimals for a reason. Because instead of moving right, we're going to slide the decimal 2 places to the left. So again, up here, if you're going to a percent, I have the R capitalized for right. If you're going to a decimal, I have the L capitalized because you're going to slide left 2 places. And instead of adding a percent, you're going to drop the percent. Okay, so you have 2%. You're going to slide the decimal 2 places to the left. You're saying, well, there is no decimal. And guys, well, that's 1.2, sorry. That's not the number 1. Okay, that's 1.2. So what I'm going to do is slide the decimal 2 places to the left. 1 to the left, 2 to the left. So the decimal is no longer right here. It is right there. But what are you going to put in an empty spot? Well, you're going to drop that there. So this ends up being 0.012 or 12 thousandths and drop the percent. Percent's gone because you're changing it to just a decimal, okay? You're always able to add a 0 in front of a decimal if there's no whole number there. Okay, let's take a look at 94%. We're saying, well, I don't see a decimal. That's because it's at the end. Now slide it 2 places to the left. 1, remember changing it to a decimal, so go 2 left. 1 place left, 2 places left. So the decimal is no longer at the end. It is right there. So you're always able to add a 0 as a whole number in front of the decimal if you don't have anything. So this ends up being 0 and 94 hundredths, and of course, drop the percent. That's it. All right, you have 42.5%. You're going to slide the decimal 2 places left because you're going from a percent to a decimal. 1, 2. And I know somebody's saying, well, that's already a decimal. No, it's a percent because there's a percent back there. Okay? Decimals don't have percents written on them. Okay, so you slide it 2 places to the left. So your decimal is no longer here, it is here. And you're able to add a 0 there. So 0.425 or 425 thousandths and drop the percent. That's it for percent to decimal. All right, and lastly, we have fractions to percents, okay? So fractions to percents are a little more complicated. What we're going to do is going to do fraction. We're going to change a fraction to a decimal. We do that by T-bowing. And then we're going to go from a decimal to a percent by sliding the decimal 2 places. It has R in it, 2 places to the right. And then we'll add our percent sign. Okay? Don't forget to add your percent sign. So I have those directions here. We're going to change the fraction to a decimal, and we're going to do that by T-bowing. Okay? Remember, when you T-bow, you add a decimal and a 0, and then you just start dividing. Then you're going to change your decimal to a percent. You just simply slide your decimal 2 places to the right. Okay? And then don't forget to add the percent. Add the percent like I have right here. Make sure you add the percent in the end. Okay, so first of all, let's T-bow. Step 1, we're going to T-bow. If I can get the pen up. This goes in and this goes out. So we got 5 and then we have 2. And don't forget to add the decimal and the 0 after the number. Bring your decimal up and we'll start the division process. 5 won't go into 2. But 5 will go into 25, 10, 15, 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have changed this to a decimal, but I want to change it to a percent. So to change it to a percent, don't forget to slide the decimal 2 places to the right. So since I have a decimal now, I can go 2 to the right. 1, 2. So no longer is your decimal here. It is here, and put a 0 in the empty space. So this ends up being 40%, guys. 2/5 is 40%. All right, let's look at 1/8. Step 1, you're going to T-bow. Top in, bottom out. So we can change it to a decimal. Add your decimal and your 0. Bring that decimal up. Let's skip count by 8s. Okay. 8 won't go into 1. Bring down the 0. How many times will 8 go into 10? Only 1. Subtract the 8. Okay. Do not put a remainder in a decimal. Just keep adding zeros. How many times will 8 go into 20? Well, 8 will go into 20. We'll get to 16. 24 is over the 20. So that's 1, 2, 3. Oh, excuse me, that's 2. Back up. I'm having a moment. That was step 1. Let me erase that because I counted that. So 8 will go into 20 only 1, 2 times. Okay? That's 16. Subtract the 16. 10 minus 6 is 4. And then still don't have a remainder 0. Nothing's repeating in the top. So bring that 0 down. Now how close can I get to 40 without going over? So I'm going to go back and skip count. Add a few more. I can get to exactly 40. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 groups. So this is 0 and 125 thousandths, but that's a decimal. To change it to a percent, you slide your decimal 1, 2. So the decimal is no longer between the 0 and the 1. It's between the 2 and the 5. So this is 12.5, and don't forget to add your percent. So 1/8 is 12.5%. All right, I'm going to erase this because I don't like it when it's all jumbled up. Okay, so for the last one, This 5 acts as a whole number, so I know it's going to be in front of my decimal. I just got to figure out what goes there. So I'm only going to take this part and T-bow. Top and bottom out. Add the decimal and a 0. Change that part to a decimal. I'm going to skip count by 11s. 11, 22, 33, 44, 55, 66, 77, 88, and so forth. All right, 11 won't go into 7, but 11 will go into 70. Exactly one. Well, and not exactly, but I can get 6 times. That's 60, 66. Excuse me. Add a 0 and bring it down. 11 will go into 40 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Subtract the 33. And I think this thing is going to repeat. 11 will go into 76 times. That's 66. Because as far as I can go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then, yeah, it's going to keep repeating. 11 will go into 43 times. 1, 2, 3. It's just going to keep repeating the 6 and the 3, 6 and the 3. So, what I'll do is just go ahead and move this decimal 2 places and round it to the nearest 10 after I move it. So I'm going to slide this 2 places because I'm going to put the 6 and the 3 behind the decimal because that's what's behind the decimal here. So I am going to slide this 2 places. Remember, I'm changing it to a percent, so slide it 1, 2. So now it's no longer between the 5 and the 6. It's between the 3 and the 6. So I'm going to write this as 5, 6, 3 decimal. And I'll just leave it like this and put a percent on it, okay? It actually keeps going, but I'll just round it out to the nearest. Let me change it to the nearest 10th. I'm going to drop that 3. I'm going to round it to the nearest 10th. If it repeats, round it. I'm going to tell you, round, if you see one that repeats, round to the, and now when I say round to that, I mean your answer. Round your answer to the nearest 10th. And the 10th is one number after the decimal. So basically, if your number looks like this, here's that 10th place. That 3 tells that 6 to stay the same. If the number to the right of it was 5 or more, then this would have gone up. But since that number to the right of the 6 is less than 5, then the 6 stays. So round it to the nearest 10. And I need to use approximation symbols because I rounded this, okay? So if you get one that repeats, round it to the nearest 10th for me, all right? To round to the nearest 10th, the number in the hundreds place tells the number in the 10th place to either go up or stay the same. But only round your answer, okay? Don't try to round this, round the answer. This is your answer right here. That's what you round. That 3 tells that 6 to stay the same, okay? All right, guys, you got practice on this. So you should see it on Google Classroom.